Barakatay Hawa, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is A Great Hailstone Out of Heaven. And pretty much this is inspired from a video I was watching a little while ago. The elder Mawatazak, the head of the LA camp, GMS Rock Solid Foundation 2. And pretty much he did a video called It Shall Be Wholly Desolate, speaking about Babylon the Great, America. And it's funny because not even a week ago, about 6 days ago, the Spirit had me do a lesson and call it The Whole Land Desolate, which shows you how the Spirit works. Pretty much we're talking about the same things pretty much in the Spirit, just bringing out different points. And that just goes to show you how the Spirit operates. I had no clue he did this video. And this video, I believe he just did that video. Yep, 13 hours ago. And the Spirit had me do a video or a lesson on it almost a week ago. So we're going to get into it because it, when I was listening to his video, somehow it prompted me to think about different scriptures dealing with the coming destruction, but in a sense of, the magnitude of what's coming. Matter of fact, let me get this real quick. No, matter of fact, you know what? Let me just get it since it came to mind. Put it up here. And just before I started, the Spirit tapped me in the head with this demon here, Einstein. And he made a quote. He said, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." Because he knew the devastation that was coming by this particular war of World War III. He knew it was going to be a cataclysmic event. You also had Robert Oppenheimer that said, let me just go to quote, see if it pops up. Right here, boom, beautiful, see? It says, "Now am I become death, the destroyer of worlds," quoting the Bhagavad Gita after witnessing the first nuclear explosion. And he saw that, and he just saw the future flash right before his eyes. That's why the very first thing he thought about when he saw that explosion and the magnitude of that explosion, that "now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," which was the actual quote that he got from this, I believe that's East Indian book, Bhagavad Gita, if I'm not mistaken. Because he knew just by seeing that, the devastation. And these devils know that the way warfare was going, it was escalating, to the point where it's at right now, where it's no longer fought on the battlefield facing each other. It's fought now by dropping bombs from different locations. It's fought with drones. It's not fought like a manly battle was fought in the ancient world. I mean, you still have missions, you still have, boots on the ground, so to speak. But this major war that's going to be fought is going to be fought by nuclear missiles. All right. And we have scriptures that speak about it all throughout, from the Old Testament to the New Testament. One of the very first mentions of nuclear war is in the book of Genesis, the 19th chapter, where you had the Lord that caused the elements in the heavens to fuse together and create fire, fire and brimstone. And there were balls of fire, coming down, pelting down to the earth upon those 5 cities, of Sodom, Gomorrah, Zeboim, Admah, and Zoar, took them out. So we're coming now to the point where, matter of fact, since the young elder put it up, let's get it. Isaiah 95 is Michael out of L.A. Isaiah 95, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So every battle in the past has been fought with men on a battlefield, with confused noise, swords, spears, daggers, darts, whatever the case, arrows. But this particular war that's coming, which is going to be World War III, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. What's going to bring that burning and fuel of fire? Those nuclear missiles. So when we go to Revelation 8 and 13 says, and I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe. Because the Heavenly Father had the plan for 3 world wars. You have World War I, World War II, and fast approaching is going to be World War III. Okay? To the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. Because in order for us, to get out of here, prophecies all have to be fulfilled. And if we are part of the elect, we have to leave the soils of America into the chariots, between the ending of the 6th angel and the beginning of the 7th, or the ending of the 6th trumpet and the beginning of the 7th. Because 7 is completion, which means total annihilation. So the ones that are left on the soils of America will be totally annihilated by that nuclear fire, or what the scriptures call, the lake of fire. So you had 3 world wars. Now when we go to the 9th chapter, and you understand, prophecy, this is speaking about World War I. And then after this after we read from the first verse down, it says 1 woe is past, meaning World War I is past, and behold, there come 2 woes more hereafter, meaning 2 more world woes or world wars. We go to the 11th chapter and the 14th verse. It says the 2nd woe is past, and behold, the 3rd woe cometh quickly. So the 2nd woe, which was World War II, came and went. And now we're at the end where World War III is about to, it's the alarm of war is going out. It's already out there. It's already in the elements. The military men are in place. All they have to do is finally give that MOTB, which is the C-HIP, that final push. And here we go. All right, so let's go to Daniel chapter 12. And verse 1, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. Because we're going to have divine intervention, not only from Jacob's trouble and everything that's coming, but also from the total annihilation of America by those nuclear missiles and the lasers from the chariots. So it says, and there shall be a time of trouble. See? This is Jacob's trouble, and it's going to play into the war of Armageddon, because it's going to be a time there was never ever a time like this, nor ever shall be, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. So there's no event that has ever taken place or that will ever take place that will be like this devastation. It says, and at that time that people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book, meaning the ones that are part of the elect. Those are the ones that will be delivered. All right. But this great time, this time of trouble, like there was no other, is going to be handled, for lack of better words, by way of this World War III that's coming. And when we go to Ezekiel 38, which was one of the scriptures that came to mind when I was watching the elder's video, Mawatazak, it shall be wholly desolate. This is one of the scriptures that came to mind. We go to Ezekiel 38. We're just going to go straight down to the 18th verse. It says, and it shall come to pass At the same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord, that my fury shall come up in my face. Now, when we look up the word Gog, which goes to the Hebrew word Gawag, right? It says mountain. This is actually the name of a Reubenite, and also the prophetic prince of Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal, Magog. It says here, of uncertain derivation, Gog, the name of an Israelite, also of some northern nation. See, this is the northern nation, which is in the land of what's known today as Russia. Okay, now, when we go to the book of, because we read their northern nation. When we go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, it's saying the same thing, but in just a little different. So Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9, it says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, which is America, because the Lord is the one that's causing these things to happen. He's the one that's moving the chess pieces on a chessboard, right? Against Babylon, an assembly of great nations from the north country. And it's no coincidence that the USSR, the United Socialist Soviet Republic, which used to be one with the Iron Wall and everything, was broken up into different regions. And now those regions are starting to come back together. You know, like right now, the Donbass region of Ukraine, you know, is pretty much, you know, is being fought back and forth between Russia and Ukraine, but I believe right now it's in Russia's hands. All right. So these great nations from the North country are Russian nations that are coming together, you know, as one to fulfill this final prophecy. It says, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence shall she be taken, right? And America is going to be taken primarily by the Russians, but you also have other major players like the so-called East Indians, the Chinese, you know, that have nuclear missiles, Pakistan, and ultimately America's own allies, which are part of the European Union, part of NATO. They're all going to turn against this whole because the Most High is going to make them turn against her. Why? Because this is the Most High's program. It says, their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. Why? Because the Lord himself is going to be guiding these missiles to hit their target. So they may have targets in mind, missiles pointed at certain strategic locations in America, but the Most High himself is going to guide them where he wants them to hit, because he knows the spot where these missiles are going to hit that's going to cause the most devastation. Then it says, none shall return in vain, meaning every missile is going to hit their target. Every missile is going to accomplish its mission. There ain't going to be no duds. All right, they're all going to hit their mark. Now I don't know if it's right here, boom, the 14th verse. Put yourselves in array against Babylon, America, round about, all ye that bend the bow. What are the bows? The bows, when you have a bow and arrow, the bow is the part that propels the arrow. So what is the propelling of the bow in terms of nuclear weapons? The silos, which is where the missiles are shot from. So the silo would be like a bow. And then the Lord is cocking that back and about to let it go. Shoot at her. Spare no arrows. Because when we go to the book of Revelation 9, it says that there's going to be 200 million missiles flying. Now, the Apostle John did not count each one. He didn't say that, and I counted, and thus it was 200 million. No, he said, I heard the number thereof. And if you understand nuclear missiles have multiple warheads in them. You know? So there's going to be 200 million nuclear warheads unleashed on this place. All right. And you have to understand also that there are weapons that they have that they're not even talking about. You see, they're not giving you everything. Every nation ain't giving out all of their strategies. All right. It says, spare no arrows, for she have sinned against the Lord. And now it's time for the Lord to bring her down. Now let's go from there to Revelation chapter 20 and verse 7. It says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, meaning the time when Esau was brought down, once the Renaissance period came around, Satan, which is Esau, the Edomite, shall be loosed out of his prison, out of that prison term, which they were bound for 1,000 years. They couldn't do nothing. And the very first thing they did, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. And you that have been studying know what this is dealing with. You know, the great deception that these devils have painted across the planet. Then it goes on to say Gog and Magog, which is the same thing that we read in the books of Ezekiel 38 and 39, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea, because you have something called what? Armageddon, which is what the Lord is preparing to bring forth. Now let's go back to Ezekiel 38. Right, it says, and it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, because the land of Israel is going to be totally annihilated also. Saith the Lord power, that my fury shall come up in my face, right? Because the Most High is going to remember everything that this place has done. And the Lord is going to bring forth that judgment. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be what? A great shaking in the land of Israel. So what's going to cause that great shaking? These nuclear missiles pelting down upon the surface of the earth and causing those vibrations. You know, like when you have an earthquake, the earthquake causes tsunamis, they cause vibrations, cause people, buildings and people, you know, to falter or fall, you know, streets to open up, you know, sinkholes to happen, you know, whatever the case may be. So we look up the word great shaking. The word great is gadawal, which is great, gadawal or gadal, and also shaking, which you have the word ra'aish, quaking, rattling, shaking, earthquake, right? Let's see, vibration, bounding, uproar, commotion, confused noise, right? Earthquake, fierceness. It's going to be terrible. This is why when the prophets would see these things, they would get sick. You know, they would be sick with fear. They would be sick in general, period. Because of the intensity of, you know, the devastation of what's coming. So it says there shall be a great shaking in the what? In the land of Israel. Because not only America is going to be totally annihilated, but the land of Israel is going to be taken out too. Thus saith the Heavenly Father, Yahweh. So that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field and all creeping things that creep upon the earth and all men that are upon the face of the earth shall what? Shall shake at my presence, because the presence of the Lord himself is going to be in those missiles, because he is a consuming fire. So this whole planet is going to be shaken, rocking to and fro. You can read about that in Isaiah, the 24th chapter. At the presence of the Lord. Because the Lord he's going to bring the final devastation upon this place. And the mountains shall be thrown down, meaning the governments. These different governments are going to be brought down. Shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, right? So these major governments and these minor governments are going to fall. And every wall shall fall to the ground, right? Because there's not going to be any more, you know, nations ruling ever again on the planet. They're not going to be set up, established. They're not going to come back into power. And okay, now that America's totally out of the way, now China's going to set back up, or Russia's going to set. No. All of these nations are going to be taken down once Yahushua comes back. Right? It says, so now let's go from there real quick. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah chapter 4. Now, Jeremiah chapter 4, this was the devastation of Israel or Judah, by the Babylonians. But there's a point in here that sort of kind of veers off, like when you're reading Isaiah the 60th chapter. It speaks about arising, waking up, there's gross darkness upon the people, and then the light shall shine upon us. And eventually, when the kingdom is established, these nations are going to bring their goods, their cattle, their flocks. And then there's one point where it just stops and it goes into a whole different direction. It speaks about the chariots. Then after that one verse, it goes back to the original thought. This is how prophecies are written sometimes. Sometimes it's just straight through. Sometimes it's choppy. Sometimes it jumps from one time period to another time period. And that's why a lot of people get, they get confused because they can't, put it all together because the Spirit of the Lord ain't working with them. So we go to Jeremiah 4:23 as it's speaking about the devastation of Judah. It says, I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form. Why? Because this whole system, when it collapses, it's not going to have any form of structure as far as rulers. Whenever you have a devastation, you have the police that are sent out, the ambulance, the firemen, they assess the situation. You have investigations going on. There ain't going to be none of that. Because the devastation is going to be so great that they ain't going to be able to assess anything. And we don't know what parts of the world are going to be hit with what. So it's going to be total chaos. It says, and void. Why? Because these nations are not going to be ruling anymore. There's not going to be any structure. And the heavens, and they had no light. Why did the heavens have no light? Because these nations are going to be brought down, and also the smoke coming up from that devastation is going to block out, the light in certain places of the world. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, and all the hills moved lightly. Right, that's these different governments, because they're going to be afraid of what's coming. Not only the devastation of the missiles pelting down in the war, but Yahushua and the angels and their presence and them coming and shooting lasers, attacking. So it's going to be a whole lot going on. That's why it says that they're going to be afraid, and yet there's fight. It says, I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of the heaven were fled. Yeah, because when this devastation comes, ain't nothing going to be able to be operating on the business as usual as they normally do. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was wilderness. Right, like America. The whole of America is going to be a wilderness from one point to the other. The whole land is desolate. The land of Israel is going to be completely desolate. And all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of the Lord and by his fierce anger. And this is also dealing with the land of Israel, as we're reading in Ezekiel 38, that the Lord is going to totally devastate that. It says, for thus saith the Lord, the whole land shall be desolate, yet will I not make a full end. Why? Because the Lord is going to rebuild the land of Israel. The Lord is going to rebuild the earth. It's going to be renewed, refreshed. It says, for this shall the earth mourn, and the heavens above be black. Why? From the soot and the smoke coming up from those missiles. Because I have spoken it, I have purposed it, and will not repent, neither will I turn back. Because the Lord said that he will sweep it with the besom of destruction. All right. Now let's go back to Ezekiel 38 and 21. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains. And what is that sword? That sword is the destruction. You know, the mountains represent the land of Israel. That's going to be destroyed, but also America. And whatever other areas of the world the Lord is going to cause these missiles to hit. Saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, every man's sword shall be against his brother, right? Because there's going to be war going on when Yahushai comes back with the angels. And I will plead against him with pestilence, which are these different diseases. And you see things ramping up right now. And with blood, right? A lot of killing. And I will rain upon him. How is the Lord going to rain upon him? He's going to rain upon them with those missiles and with the lasers from the chariots. And upon his bands. What are the bands? Those represent the militaries, the different militaries of the world. And upon the many people that are with him, right? You could read, to get a better understanding of this verse here, just read 2 Ezra 13 about the first 7 or 8 verses. And it gives you what this is speaking about. And overflowing rain. The rain that's coming is going to be overflowing. And great hailstones, fire, and brimstone from the missiles. And this is the same thing that happened during the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. But in their case, there were no missiles. It was a straight infusion of these different elements in the heavens to create fire, big fireballs coming down, pelting down on those 5 cities. And you better believe that there was some rocking and rolling going on. Because I believe it said that Abraham saw from afar off. And he was, a little, I mean, I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but I believe that he saw the smoke from a distance from where he was at. And that's what's going to happen with America. People are going to be standing afar off. Some of the ships that are at the ports, they're going to be burnt up, blown away. But some of the ships that are on their way, when they hear the commotion, they're going to stop. In the middle of wherever, whether the Pacific or the Atlantic or wherever they may be. And they're going to see from afar off. From different countries, they're going to see by way of the satellites, by way of the internet. It's no coincidence that the internet is out there. The Lord set that whole thing up for a particular reason. Now let's go to Revelation 16. And 16. It says, and he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon, which goes to the Hebrew word Har Magadwan, Har meaning mount, God meaning troop, and the one at the end makes it plural. Har Magadwan, mountain of the troops. And that's all these military men amassing over there. This is why when we read in Revelation 20, it spoke about the multitudes. In Joel, the 3rd chapter, it speaks about the multitudes in the valley of decision. It says, and the 7th angel poured out his vial into the air. See, the 7th angel. So we have to be out here between the ending of the 6th and the beginning of the 7th. Poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, it is done. Right. Close the book. Close the chapter and the page on this book, because it is done. That part of the mission and prophecy is fulfilled now. Now it's time to go to the next phase. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake. See, now we go here to the word great earthquake. There's 2 words. The word for great is megas, and then the word for earthquake is seismos, which is where you get the word seismology, which is what they use to measure earthquakes. Seismos is a shaking, a commotion, a tempest, an earthquake. But it says a great earthquake. All right? It says of the ground, an earthquake. And what's going to cause that? The missiles that are pelting down upon the surface of the earth. All right. So it says a great earthquake, such as was not since such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. This is the same thing we read about in the book of Daniel, the 12th chapter. A time of trouble such as never was since. There was a nation, even to that same time. And the great city was divided into three parts. What great city? America, Babylon the Great. Why was it divided into three parts? Because you have three classifications of men. The sons of God, which are the Israelites, the sons of men, which are the other nations, and the sons of the wicked, which are the Edomites. And the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before the Most High. And this is how the Lord is going to reward her, by this destruction. And that's why this is called the second death. To give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Yeah, because it tells us in Psalms that in the Lord's hand there is a cup, and it is red. And he pours it out without mixture. And this is part of that cup, the devastation that's coming to America and to this world, to certain parts of the world, especially America and the land of Israel, prior to the Lord, or when the Lord comes back as a payment, for the wickedness that they've done. And every island fled away and the mountains were not found. Why? Because there will not be any more nations ruling. The ones that are left over are not going to rebuild. There's not going to be a continuity of government. This place is going to be totally annihilated. America is totally annihilated. Land of Israel totally annihilated. Wherever the missiles are going to hit, going to be devastation. And there will not be any more governments of the heathen set up, because the scripture said that the land of Israel shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And that will be the fulfillment. This is why up above we read that the angel said, "It is done." And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven. And that great hail out of heaven are these missiles. And this is what the Apostle John, once again Megas, described it as. The word for hail, kalazah, which pretty much says hail, doesn't really go into too much. Right. And this one here from kalau means to loosen, slacken, relax, to let down from a higher place to a lower. So what's coming from a higher place to a lower? The missiles, because they're shot out of the bow, the silo. They're going out into the outer atmosphere and coming back down from a higher place, coming down and hitting their targets. Just like you shoot an arrow in an arc type fashion. All right. So it says, and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent, which the weight of a talent is anywhere from like 75 to 100 pounds. And in this one, they have the word talantiaios, and they have a weight or worth of a talent of silver weighed about 100 pounds, a talent of gold, 200 pounds. So this is what he saw in the air. And this is what he compared it to, a measurement of a talent. And that's what they look like. All right, because remember, the warhead's coming down. That's going to be the final part of it. Because the biggest part of the missile is just a propulsion system used to propel it from one part of the world to the other. That's why they're called ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles. So then there fell and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent, and men blasphemed the Most High because of the plague of the hail. Yeah, because it's going to be devastating. They're going to be shitting in their pants pretty much. For the plague thereof was exceeding great, and this is a plague that's coming. And you can read about that in 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter. It's a plague that's coming. Now let's go back to Ezekiel 38. And 23, thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, because this is how the Lord is going to establish his name once again upon the earth. Because the prophets of the Lord, which he inspired, are speaking his words and telling the world exactly how it's going to go down before it does. So when it does go down in that fashion, the Most High's name will be exalted and magnified in that day, just like it was during the time of Egypt. And I will be known in the eyes of many nations, nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Right, because they're going to finally give, credit to the name Yahweh and his son Yahweh Shai. No more Molechs, no more Jesus Christ, no more, none of that. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. From there, let's go real quick to Ezekiel chapter 20 and verse 9. It says, but I wrought for my name's sake. This is when the Lord delivered us out of the land of Egypt, that it should not be polluted before the heathen, the Most High's name, among whom they were, the Israelites, in whose sight I made myself known unto them, and bringing them forth out of the land of Egypt. And this is when the Most High was, because we knew, but this, when the deliverance out of Egypt happened, that's when the Most High was made well known unto us. Hence the word for known, Nawada Aithia, which is the same word that is written in Exodus, the 6th chapter, in the 3rd verse, where it says that the Lord was not known to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob by that name. It means he was not well known, because Abraham called upon that name, Isaac called upon that name, Jacob called upon that name. Men began to call upon the name of Yahweh in Genesis 4. The Heavenly Father's name first appears in the scriptures in Genesis 2 and 4. All right? So the Lord's name is well known, and that's how he's going to magnify his name when he brings his destruction, and he'll get the credit for doing it. So going from there to the last precept we have is Jeremiah chapter 16 and 14. It says, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Why? Because this was the first time that the Heavenly Father worldwide magnified his name. And now it's coming back again in this time, but this time is going to be the new Egypt, which is America, Babylon the Great. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north. This hasn't happened yet. It's about to happen. This land of the north is speaking about America, because it's going to outshine the deliverance from Egypt. There's no other place on the planet of any captivity and deliverance that we've been in that has outshined the deliverance of Egypt. So this hasn't happened yet. It's about to happen. And from all the lands whither he had driven them, because Yahweh Shai is coming back with the angels to gather the elect from the four corners of the earth. And I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. And that's when we're going to go back to that land. You have brothers that's over there. They shouldn't be there, because that land is going to be totally destroyed. So with that, this has been a great hail out of heaven. Barakateh Hao Bashem Al Shai for the inspiration. Lord's will, you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.